I never should have agreed to cover the night shift at Hollow Creek Station, but I needed the money. The job sounded simple. Man the pumps, collect cash, keep an eye on the mini-market. I figured a few hours filling tanks under the stars couldn't be worse than my last gig. The first couple of nights passed in a haze of flickering fluorescent lights and slack-jawed truckers. There were creaks in the vending machine and the usual hum of the refrigeration unit, but nothing out of the ordinary. Then, on night 4, the CCTV feed on the monitor winked out. Once, twice, then snapped back, all 4 screens showing static. I slapped the side of the dusty screen, praying it was just a glitch. But then on one screen, I saw a pair of tiny feet appear in the stockroom aisle, though I'd locked that door hours ago. My hands shook as I grabbed the master keyring and walked down the aisle. The door swung open to empty shelves, and a single red bracer dropped on the floor. I picked it up, sweaty palm sliding across the rough fabric. It was a child's knee pad, worn and scuffed. I had no kids, and no one under 20 had come in all night. I pocketed the bracer and returned to the counter, eyes darting to the cameras. Then I heard it, a soft giggle, like a tired schoolgirl's laugh, echoing beneath the humming lights. My heart hammered. I leaned over the counter, straining to hear. The laughter came again, closer behind me. I whipped around, empty. I forced myself to finish the shift. Closing time came at dawn, but I stalled, hoping to catch movement on the feed. At sunrise, I tweeted my boredom and snatched my bag, tossing the bracer in a drawer. As I reached for the door, I froze, scrawled on the glass from the inside, in what looked like wet paint, read the words, "See you soon." I called my manager, voice cracking. He said the station's been closed for years. No one's worked there since the Spruce family disappeared. I laughed it off, told him he was kidding, but when I walked back to the lot, the pumps had vanished. Concrete scars on the ground, hoses snaking back into an underground hole. The neon sign lay shattered, the letters Leghorn and Sons half buried. I never went back, never even told my friends. But sometimes I wake at 2:17 a.m. and hear that old pump machine click, spitting out change. And I swear I feel a small hand slip into mine, guiding me back to Hollow Creek Station, where the lights never die and the watchers never sleep. If you're brave enough to come this far, then don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts with me. Let's move on to the next story. Thought for a couple of seconds, I never believed that a routine late-night fill-up could turn into something out of a nightmare. Until last Friday. I was driving back from a friend's farewell party on a deserted stretch of highway, just outside Willow Creek. My gas needle hovered threateningly over E, so I pulled into the only station for miles, a rundown place with flickering neon pumps and an old concrete kiosk that looked as though it hadn't changed since the 70s. I shook off the uneasy feeling and stepped out into the humid air. The station's single light bulb cast long, warped shadows. I keyed my door lock reflexively and grabbed my wallet. The sign above the kiosk window read, "Open 24 hours," but through the grime I could barely make out a silhouette pacing inside. No chime greeted me when I pushed the door. It was eerily silent. "Evening," I said, forcing lightness into my voice. The attendant, a gaunt man whose face was half hidden behind a stained baseball cap, didn't answer. He just pointed at pump 6, his finger rattling like dry bones. I thanked him and walked back, half expecting him to speak, but he was gone when I looked back. The moment I lifted the nozzle, the old pump groaned, and the digital display flickered with gibberish. 78 / Hit your death, fall. I laughed and assumed a broken panel. But then, through the darkness beyond the pump, I saw a small, pale figure watching. Nothing more than a child's silhouette, unmoving. My heart clenched. No other cars, no lights in the distance. I called out, "Hey, are you okay?" The figure vanished. I gripped the handle tighter. The pump's hose seemed to twist, writhing in my hand like a living thing. An icy breeze cut through the summer night, though not a leaf stirred. I glanced at the kiosk window, expecting to see the attendant, but instead I saw her, a little girl with dark, empty eyes pressed against the glass. Her mouth stretched into a grin that didn't reach her eyes. I stared, frozen in place. Then the neon sign sputtered, and the station lights snapped off. Absolute darkness, save for the pale moon. In that moment, the girl was standing right beside me, though I didn't hear her approach. I bolted, no care for the pump, no concern for the running engine. I sprinted back to my car, slammed the door, and locked it. Through the window, I saw an impossibly long line of the same little girl, dozens of them, marching from the shadows toward the kiosk, their hollow smiles growing wider. My engine roared to life, and I peeled out of there, tires screaming. I didn't look back. At home, I scoured the news for any mention of an abandoned gas station or missing children. Nothing. The next morning, I drove past the exit on autopilot. The station was gone. No lights, no pumps, just an empty lot overgrown with weeds, as though it had never existed. I still wake up at 3 a.m., drenched in sweat, hearing that slow, mechanical groan of the pump, and I swear I can see those pale faces in the dark, waiting for me to return. For a bit of context, I work at a gas station in the backwoods of Tennessee, and that's where this happened. Last night, when I clocked in at 8, the store was completely dead. I figured it was going to be a pretty easy night because the road this station is on is not the main road. Actually, it used to be up until about a decade ago when a new freeway was built. This led basically every business that was here to pack up and leave their old building abandoned. Thanks to this, there are a lot of abandoned buildings on this stretch of road that local druggies tend to claim as their own. Anyways, at around 11, I only had an hour left of my shift, and so I figure I should actually get some work done instead of just sitting around and doing nothing. I'm 18, and so I work the shift alone, which is nice because it means I can do pretty much whatever I want. This is normally pretty great because I can do whatever I want so long as I get what I need to get done finished. I noticed we were almost out of barbecue chips, and so I need to go get them from our storage space, which is for some reason in the basement of the station. I've always hated going down there just because it gives me the creeps. Why the owner decided to store everything down there is beyond my comprehension. I got about halfway down the steps before something fell on the other side of the room, and it sounded like footsteps were coming my way. I sprinted up the stairs and locked the door to the basement, panicking like a madman the entire time. While I got back upstairs, I went behind the counter to the store computer so I could check the security cameras. I flicked over to the one that looks into the basement, and there was this guy just standing there smiling up into the camera. He had a look of absolute insanity in his eyes, but he didn't look like the average junkie in the area. He was clean-shaven and dressed in what looked to be jeans and a button-up of some kind. Honestly, if he'd walked into the store, I wouldn't have batted an eye, but because he was down there and he was just looking into the camera smiling. It shook me to my core. I called the store owner, and at first he was pretty mad I called him in the middle of the night. But once he heard how freaked out I was, his tone changed. He told me he'd be there in 15 minutes and just to lock the main door to the store and make sure the man didn't go anywhere. I asked if I should call the police, but for some reason he didn't want me to do that just yet. I locked the entrance to the gas station and went back to looking at the man. He was still there, just smiling up at me. About 3 or so minutes of him staring at me later, and he walked out of view of the camera. My boss showed up soon after armed with a shotgun, and when I let him in, he immediately went to the basement. I went with him just because I felt safe with there being another person there and all, but we found nothing. My boss ultimately chalked this up to me being tired and hallucinating the man, but I know what I saw. This has me scared shitless as I clock back into work in a few hours, and I'm really dreading it. And the question is, If you were in each person's situation, what would you do? Let me know in the comments.